What is up, Squared Nation? Welcome back to No Counters, No Combos, and today we're talking some tech. So recently in the Facebook page, the Dragon Ball Community Discussion Group, somebody posted, the name is escaping me, so I do apologize, but somebody posted, what were the thoughts of the community as to what the best blue card in Draft Box 6 was. And there's a good amount of blue cards. Some of the Bardock Ape stuff, with the Bardock's crew is really good. Obviously, the Silver Bullet in blue, which is Borgos, is really good. The Arrival Bardock, the blue-yellow card, is really good. So there's a lot of good, archetype specific stuff aside from the Silver Bullet. But if you're looking at more of like a generic, across the board type of card, that's what we're going to be talking about today. In my opinion, the best blue card from Draft Box 6 is Intersecting Fates. Intersecting Fates is a 1-drop extra card for blue. It requires 1 blue specified. Activate main. If your leader is blue, look at up to 2 cards from the top of your deck. Add 1 card among them to your hand. Then place the remaining cards at the bottom of your deck in any order. At the end of the turn, switch up to 1 of your mono blue energy to active mode. So it might not seem like a lot on surface value, but when you start combining a couple of things here and there, especially with blue, it does become a really powerful card. So if you guys, have been playing this game for a long time and you remember, the swap, Storm swap decks with Bardock and Goku's lineage and stuff like that, you remember the value of playing Bardock and swapping into Goten. And Goten looking at, X amount of cards from the top of the deck and adding 1 and putting the rest at the bottom. Obviously, this is nowhere near as potent as Goten because Goten was a battle card, so it did have a lot of other different applications, but you can see where adding cards from your deck to your hand can start to become valuable. Now, if this card was green, it would immediately be broken, in my opinion, because we have a green leader in Majin Vegeta that has the Servant Overlord, keywords in the game that can look at the bottom of the deck and play Vegeta that's 3 or less for 1 green energy. So if this card was green and you were able to kind of fix your draws and put stuff at the bottom of the deck that you wanted there, it would be really good because you would be able to essentially tutor out of the deck, an offensive threat, whether it's the 1-drop tournament pack promo or the 3-drop Majin Vegeta from the set. The Majin Vegeta leader does have that ability of, playing the card initially, attacking, using Overlord, putting it at the bottom, drawing a card, and then using 1 green energy to bring them back out, from the bottom of the deck. So being able to correct your piles or your deck or your draws is very good, and it's always been really strong in a lot of other card games. Now, the reason I like this card so much for blue is because of what it does for the archetype. Blue has always been a really strong color in the game. Its identity has always been that untapped mechanic, but what blue suffers from is the ability to continue to draw cards. Now, obviously, we have seen a resurgence in blue with like Soul Striker, Reboot Soul Striker rather, and Reboot SS3. But their problems are always that they don't draw enough cards. That they can't, just draw a ton of cards like other decks do. So they have to facilitate other things here and there. So like Saiyan Instincts is very popular for blue decks because they have all that extra energy open where they can use it for drawing. So that's what makes, those cards really good for blue decks because it gives them something that they lack, which is draw power. Intersecting Fates technically is not draw power, but the ability to look at the top 2 cards, add 1 to your hand, and then put the rest at the bottom is basically like a draw 1, but you get to choose which card you draw. And then at the end of the turn, this is why I think this card is really good. At the end of your turn, you get to re-stand that energy that you used to activate the extra card in the first place. Now, again, blue has always been that untapped color with Sensu Beans and, back in the day, Unyielding Spirit Trunks. It's always been the color to recycle its current existing energy and kind of be able to ramp, essentially, but also ramp to a point where it's comfortable for you to play with a a medium amount of energy. 5 to 6 energy for blue decks is a lot in my opinion, especially now the way the format is and the way the game has changed over the years. 5 or 6 blue energy is definitely a lot. SS3 can't even charge past 6, so that's basically what that means for the deck. But the fact that Intersecting Fates, you play it for 1, you look at the top 2, it adds you a card, and then it untaps an energy at the end, is basically not leaving you vulnerable for an offensive onslaught from your opponent. I've always, even in the beginning of the game, I've always told people, like, it's very, make sure you don't tap out if you're passing your turn. Like, if you feel like you can't, like, win your certain turn, like, don't overextend, don't tap out, because you're not going to have any energy open for defense. Obviously, we've gotten a lot of different things like sparking negates and stuff like that, where you can use it depending on how many cards are in your drop area, just by using your life total as a resource as well. But for the most part, you have to have energy open in order to activate cost and pay for cards to use them. So Intersecting Fates not only helps you correct your draw or your next draw, or maybe get like a dead card out of the top of your deck and put it towards the bottom. It also allows you to untap that energy so you can have it for defensive purposes. So I think this card is definitely going to see a lot of play in blue, especially decks that need to search their combo pieces. Like if you're playing Bardock's Crew, obviously you want to search for specific combo pieces and stuff like that, so you can go up your evolutionary chain with the apes from energy. But for the most part, there's no restriction to what card you can add. So even though this is a blue extra card, it's not limiting you to adding only blue cards or adding only cards with cost of X. You're basically just looking at the top 2 cards of your deck, choosing one of them and adding it to your hand. It could be an overwhelm play, it could be a super combo. This is essentially a searcher for, not a searcher, but this is a way of getting to your Zamasu super combos as early as possible, just so you can have them in your hand. Intersecting Fates is going to look at the top 2 cards, allow you to add one, with no downside, because essentially at the end of the turn, this card is free. Now, obviously the balancing factors was to untap the energy at the end of the turn, so it's not, virtually it's not free, but economically it is free, because you don't want to, obviously if you made it so that you untapped it during the activate main, you can continue to use that energy and then it just gets out of control. So by tapping the energy and then making it so that it would restand or go back into active mode at the end of the turn, essentially stops you from exploiting a card that has a lot of potential of being very good, right? So with that being said, even though the untap does kind of hinder you on your offensive turn, it does open you back up for defense when you switch back to your opponent. So it's not leaving you, caught between a rock and a hard place, so to speak. I've been testing this card a lot in my SS4 Vegeta deck with the ramp, and it's worked wonders. I mean, SS4 Vegeta doesn't really have a lot of turn 1 plays, so activating and Intersecting Fates is great because you're going to get that energy back at the end of the turn anyway. Obviously, we have the expansion sets 14 and 15 right around the corner, which is going to allow for some support for existing archetypes. One which I'm very interested in would be not only SS4 Vegeta, but SS2 set 10 Trunks. That one drop that they're getting, to fix their life total is very, very good. A card like this in that deck, amazing, because you're going to search for your pieces the way you want it, and you're going to have energy open for defense, which Trunks wants to do early game, till about turn 4, I would say. They want to play defense early and then just, put everything on the board at once. Go into their Infinite Radiance, go into their Paralyzing Prowess, and then just kind of control the game from there. So I definitely think Intersecting Fates is a very, very good card, in my opinion. For those who are playing blue or who are splashing blue, I really don't see any downsides to playing this card. There's no interaction with extra cards in the game right now. Obviously, we have a lot of counterplay and a lot of counter battle and counter and stuff like that, but there's nothing that shuts down extra cards from being played. I think Fu, Shrouded, and Mystery might affect extra cards, because it essentially says that you can't use any skills other than your leader skills. So Fu Shrouded will definitely shut this card off, but that's going to be such a rare occurrence. Most of the time, you're going to already have played all of your Intersecting Fates by the time Fu comes down, because he's an overwhelm for 10. He's an overwhelm 10 for 6 energy, which is a lot. It's usually like a game ender. You're not really going to have a lot of these cards in your hand towards the late game, let alone want to resolve them in the late game. This is probably going to be anything past like turn 3 or 4. Intersecting Fates might just be energy, unless you need it to like you know, just have something to do, you know. But I definitely like this card a lot. I love the artwork on it, being able to see Bardock and Kid Goku again, you know, in the original special, not the new canon with the Broly BR, but the original Bardock that was non-canon, you know, with the Bardock, the father of Goku special that aired on Toonami many years ago. This is definitely my favorite iteration of Bardock. You know, that OG Bardock that obviously, you know, with fan services and stuff like that now goes into like that time agent Bardock. So this is a long story and a lot of Dragon Ball lore there, but Bardock is definitely a cool character. He's one of my favorites, and I just like seeing the artwork, you know, him looking at his son with the, you know, space drop in or the space backdrop there on the card as well. It's just super cool to see it, but I definitely like this card. I think most blue decks should maybe consider testing it, because it's one of those things where if you are playing a combo heavy deck, you want to see your pieces, and this might be one of the most efficient way of looking through cards without having to worry about committing too much energy on the board and lock yourself out of being defensive on the next turn. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Let's open this up for discussion. Have you tested this? Are you having success with it in any of your current builds from DraftBox 6? Let's talk about it and let's see where we're at, if we're on the right track. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Be there or be squared.